This video is about Chapter 3 of my book, How to Sue the Government. Chapter 3 is entitled, Exhaust All Remedies. You must exhaust all remedies before you file a lawsuit. If not, the judge will dismiss your case. First, I'm going to talk about finding your people. In this age of social media, you can find people who have experienced what you've experienced. Whether they have good advice for you is another question. I have a lawsuit pending against the National Science Foundation. I saw a pattern with my Small Business Innovation Research SBIR grants that reviewers who gave low marks appeared to have not read my proposal beyond the first paragraph, or cited non-existent rules when rejecting my proposals, or wrote comments that belied ignorance of my field. I remembered that the solicitation, which is a document written by the agency for scientists applying for grants, in other words, of fourth-tier law, the solicitation had a sentence about reviewer expertise. All proposals are carefully reviewed by 3 to 10 persons who are experts in the particular fields represented by the proposal. I found similar wording in the agency's Proposal and Awards Policies and Procedures Guide. Optimally, reviewers should have special knowledge of the science and engineering subfields involved in the proposals to be reviewed to evaluate competence, intellectual merit, and utility of the proposed activity. The policies and procedures use the words optimally and should. In other words, the third-tier law gives discretion to the program directors, and the fourth-tier law takes away this discretion. I found a Reddit forum for scientists applying for SBIR grants. I found 3 posts describing the same experience I'd had. I posted my experience, and several people commented that everyone knows that the reviewers are incompetent. Everyone experiences this. Then a freelance grant writing consultant who'd written more than 300 grant applications and won more than $10 million in grants wrote a long, well-written comment detailing with bullet points 5 deficiencies in the grant proposal review process. Her comments were so relevant to my case that I asked her to write an amicus curiae, or friend of the court, brief. The National Science Foundation approves about 400 SBIR grants each year. More than 1,000 proposals are rejected. I researched the case law to see lawsuits against the National Science Foundation. I found only a handful each year, mostly from agency staff about employment issues. No one has filed a lawsuit complaining about the reviewer selection process. There must be hundreds of scientists each year who experienced what I experienced. Why hasn't anyone else sued the agency? The answer was in the comments to my Reddit post. Without an attorney and deep pockets, you'll never win a lawsuit against the government. Now I'm going to talk about setting up an exemplary case. In some situations, you may be able to take some time and set up a case that clearly illustrates that agency actions were not compliant with the law. In my National Science Foundation case, the agency has an alternative method for selecting reviewers. Instead of the agency selecting reviewers from its database, applicants can suggest reviewers. I discussed this with a program director when I was writing my first application, and he'd said that the program directors rarely use suggested reviewers. I put down 1 or 2 names on the suggested reviewer page, and they hadn't been consulted. For my 5th proposal, I wrote a lengthy and detailed suggested reviewers page. I listed several federal agencies where experts in the particular fields of my proposal could be found. I gave the name and contact information for an administrator who could find a qualified reviewer. I also listed a company that I hoped would be my first customer. Again, I gave the name and contact info for an administrator at the company. I wrote a few sentences saying that as the founder of a small startup, I'd had difficulty getting decision makers at this company to respond to me, but that a call from the National Science Foundation might open doors. Even if my proposal were rejected by the agency, that call could get me a customer. Proposal number 5 was rejected. In my lawsuit, I contended that the agency had 2 available review processes, one of which was in compliance with the law and the other was not, and that the program directors intentionally chose the review process that was not in compliance with the law. The compliant review process would cost them nothing and demand no more time or effort than the non-compliant review process. An exemplary case may not be possible in your situation, but if you can, take the time to set up an exemplary case. Even if this delays your lawsuit by a year, it'll make the lawsuit easier. Maybe the agency will settle, saving you a year of litigation. Now I'm going to talk about ombudsmen. Ombudsmen are government employees who work to resolve disputes between the public and a government agency. You don't need an attorney and you don't need to know anything about the law. You just explain what happened. Some government agencies have an office of ombudsmen. If not, your congressman's office have staff that will act as ombudsmen. Now I'm going to talk about agency processes. Some federal agencies have a grievance process or administrative process. If so, you must go through the agency's process before you file a lawsuit. For example, if you believe that your employer discriminated against you under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, you must file your complaint first with the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, EEOC. Now I'm going to talk about the Freedom of Information Act, FOIA. Proving your case often depends on inside information, such as government documents. Before you sue, file a Freedom of Information Act request. FOIA requests are free and easy. Most requests are filled in 3 or 4 months. Don't assume that the defendant will give you documents in discovery. The Administrative Procedures Act, APA, doesn't have discovery. If the defendant doesn't want to give you a document, they may ask the judge to dismiss your case on the grounds that you didn't file an FOIA request. Now I'm going to talk about the Office of Inspector General. Many federal agencies have an Office of Inspector General, OIG. And OIG often has a hotline, web form, or telephone number for reporting waste, fraud, inefficiency, and unlawful conduct. There isn't one OIG for the United States. Rather, each agency is associated with an OIG. These offices are independent of their agencies, but work closely with the agency. Before you contact an OIG, look for a report, often semi-annual, to Congress from the OIG. This will tell you what the OIG actually does, which can be underwhelming. Some OIG appear to only investigate complaints from agency employees about employment issues. That's the end of this chapter of my book, How to Sue the Government. Look below the video for a link to buy my book on Amazon. Look for a button to click to watch the next video. If you're watching this on YouTube, please click the subscribe button below the video so that I get a share of the revenue from the ads you've seen. I also have a Facebook page, How to Sue the Government. On X, follow the hashtag HowToSueTheGovernment, and my website is howtosuethegovernment.com.